Hey, welcome everybody. What's going on? It's Friday night, and we've got an awesome guest. It's episode 153. It's Mark and Dave from Tone Talk, and we've got Jim Root from Slipknot. What's up, Jim? How are you, man?
Doing well. How's it going, fellas?
Doing good. Doing good. I'm glad the week's over.
Is it over? I don't know. My lifestyle every day is Saturday, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and mine doesn't really. Yeah, I work Saturdays, so
Yeah,
that's
I kind of live like a dog, like sleep whenever I get tired, eat whenever I get hungry, whatever. And then all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, you had to do this." And I'm like, "What? I have shit to do. You should text me."
you should let me know that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I know you got a show on Sunday, right? You got a show coming up at Rockville.
Yep. Gearing up for a show, and I'm kind of excited. I've got my guitar tech Brad's coming in early, so we can kind of make some sense of this. This is kind of like my studio room that I'm trying to like make a studio out of, where I write demos and all that stuff in. But it's time to kind of multi-purpose it. I'd like to get an amp rack going where I can select whatever amp through whatever cabinet and just get organized. I got a drum set over here, so our drummer can come and jam with us, and I got to figure out if I'm going to mic the whole thing off or if I'm just going to keep using this Yamaha system that's on it. So I can just record a stereo track with it. And, it's just a little demo studio. Plus I got a little home theater, multi-purpose, so I can play Call of Duty over here when
You got the couch. Yeah, you can chill
Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah, beautiful.
trying to make a vibe, burn some incense, do some ohms, that whole thing,
Yeah, I like the lights. The lights in the background you got.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the mood lighting, you got it all.
It's good. I like to have that, because sometimes you can't have that when you're jamming. I always pictured when I was going to be in a band, we'd all have like the rugs laid out, and there'd be like the incense burning and the cool like black lights and that whole vibe. But then you get other people in there and it's like, turn that shit off. I can't see anything. It's like, so this is my spot, my house, my rules. It's got to have a vibe.
My house, my rules.
Yeah,
I like that.
And that's my spoiled only child like shit coming out, I suppose. I don't know, maybe.
I understand that. That's not, but it's got a nice vibe. I wouldn't want it bright.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
It's like when you walk into a restaurant that is blazingly bright, you're like, can we leave?
yeah, it's sterile, real sterile, and fluorescent lights, get out, forget it. Those things are soul sucking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Yep. So, well, thanks for coming on, Jim.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is officially my first podcast I've ever done in my entire life. So
Really? Wow. Okay.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank
I don't recall ever doing like, an actual like.
video.
Is this a podcast? This isn't really a podcast. This is more like
It's like a video cast.
Live
but yeah,
video podcast, sort of.
exactly.
Yeah.
I converted to a podcast though, so people who
cool.
listen, they do listen to it as a podcast as well. So people can listen on Apple Podcasts or any podcast, Spotify, whatever.
I was gonna say, yeah, Spotify is where I normally listen to most of my like tinfoil hat kind of stuff. So
That's awesome. So you guys are playing in Rockville this Sunday, and when was the last time you guys had a show? Was it just recently, or was
we just did 2 new shows to sort of introduce our new drummer to the world. We did a secret show at Pappy and Harriet's in Pioneer Town in the desert, kind of over by Indio, Palm Springs area.
Oh, nice.
Kind of out, and that was awesome. I love the desert, and that whole vibe is just cool. And the people there were just so nice, so cool, so accepting. And they had to have a city council meeting for us to do the show there, because they were kind of like, Slipknot, this is a small sort of like kind of like chill hippie community. Do we want this chaos happening here type of thing? But it all turned out really cool, and everybody was really accepting, and everybody was really respectful. And we donated, we raised a bunch of money to donate for, like no-kill shelters, and so a bunch of money to pump back into the economy there in Pioneer Town, and that stuff like that to me is epic. Like that's like way better than like just, I don't know, some of the shit that you can end up doing in this industry for let's just say like not the greatest causes, but when you can do stuff like that, it just hits harder, you know.
Yeah,
And
you're really making an impact. I mean,
yeah, and it was something special, and it gave us a chance to do something that we hadn't done in years, if not decades. You know, like play for 300 people. Like that was so much fun. I can't even describe. But so we did that to kind of like, boom, here he is. Yes, you were all right. It's Eloy Casagrande. He's our new dude. And then 2 days later we did a Sick New World in Vegas. So
awesome.
so we got those under the belt and out of the way. And now, you know, it's time to move forward and onward and upward and do a lot more jamming and rehearsing. And I need to get myself into writing mode so that we can you know, write music worthy of Eloy's drumming, because that dude is a world-class drummer.
Yeah, you guys were. Yeah, there was obviously all the back and forth in the news for the past few months about all that stuff, and then just recently, obviously, for those who don't know, you landed on a new drummer, and so I'm excited about that. That's super cool, and to hear the new music that you guys are going to come out with will be killer. So when you guys are going to be writing, like, what would be the process be? Like, would you be doing it like getting into a room and like writing together, or is it like separately, you send tracks to each other, do a demo? Like, how would you guys work on that stuff?
We kind of do everything. I mean, it's so hard. Like some guys, like writing individually is how I prefer to do it, at least until there's a structure. But with this band and there being so many people into it, I think we are going to get together. I'm not sure when, but we have a technical, you know, like a penciled in schedule for us all to get together in a room and try to write like that, which I'm excited about doing. The band hasn't really done that since really before the first record, maybe a little bit during the Iowa record writing sessions, maybe a little bit during Subliminal, but that slowly drops off the more you have deadlines and schedules and the more the band grows. And it should be interesting, and hopefully it won't be a situation of there being too many cooks in the kitchen, which can in some ways inhibit productivity. You know, we'll see. You know, we're willing to try anything, but you know, anything can spark from an idea. Sid could do something, and that could spark Mike to like do a riff over it, and then sometimes those songs write themselves. And then a lot of times, you know, I'll spend a little bit of time at home throwing arrangements together, and I'll pop them over to Corey, and he'll write lyrics for it. And then it'll filter out into the rest of the band, and they'll start putting their ideas on it, and then we'll start rearranging it and relayering it. And you know, nothing that's ever written by any one person in this band finishes that way. It has to go through the filter of everybody in the band before it actually becomes a Slipknot song. You know, but for me, it's just easier to like, no pressure, sitting in my room here, guitar, coming up with ideas, and then I can geek out on, you know, arrangements and layering and harmonizing, and you know, oh, do I want to throw a synth part over it, or you know, let's try different drums, you know. And I do that just for myself, just to learn Pro Tools and learn. It's a learning process, isn't it? The whole time, like
Always.
yeah. I mean, you could be the world's greatest song, or you could write songs as good as Kurt Cobain or, you know, Queen, but you're still gonna approach it differently almost with every song you write. You know, it just depends on where the inspiration sparks from and how it evolves once you get it to that point. I have hard drives full of nothing more than a riff in a session that I can't take anywhere. And then I have hundreds that are like 4 riffs that I'm like, I know they're great. I know they could be great. And those are the things that I need to filter over, you know, give to Clown, give to Corey, give to Mick, give to whoever, and be like, look, I have this thing. I know it's going to be great. Maybe you're going to listen to it and hear it differently than I do. And you'll be able to just go, oh yeah, easy. That's going to go into this, or, you know, and that's where you need, you know, those other creative entities to bounce these ideas that pop into your head off of.
Right.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about that last night with a couple people at dinner. Just like, you know, the creative energy of getting a couple people in the room, even if you're writing anything, is awesome, because they hear it different and they're going to come up with a part that you weren't going to come up with.
Yeah, 100%. The problem with Slipknot and there being 9 guys in the band is while you're being creative and kind of like with the part, somebody's tuning or somebody's hitting their drums or somebody's making noise, and it's just like, God damn it, stop. You know?
Yeah, that's got to be tough. I can imagine. I used to, remember how it was with 5, 4 or 5 guys. I can't imagine with 9.
Yeah, it can be a little overwhelming, but
yeah,
that's also where a lot of great stuff comes from, though, too. So
yeah, that's awesome. Do you guys find that you write also on the road, like and like sound checks and stuff like that? Like, hey, let's try this or let's try that.
The last time I really remember doing that, we don't really do sound checks anymore. We haven't for a long time. Our backline crew will do line checks throughout the day, mostly at the time. A lot of the gigs we play now are festivals, and there's probably 5 bands on a tour, so you don't really have time to like take
that makes sense,
an hour to fuck around with a sound check. But the last time I really remember doing that was when we were touring. We were touring on the first album still, but it was towards the end of that tour wrapping up, and we were on tour in Europe, and we were in England, and we were playing a bunch of like songs that ended up being on the Iowa record at rehearsal. Like Joey was a real workaholic, and he was like, we need to write, we need to work on these songs, him and Paul both, So I remember being at sound checks like at Bristol Academy or someplace like that over in London, and like playing the first 6 measures of People Equal Shit over and over and over again, and just that type of thing, and and then that evolved into us writing in Paul's brother's basement with Joey, and then at Spain Electric when Ross got involved and came in, and it can be done, and it has just been a long time since we've actually been doing that. Like on the road, I try to take a little portable interface with me so that I can work on my laptop or whatever in hotel rooms, especially if I know I'm gonna have multiple days off, and that tends to help not just kill time and kill boredom on the road, but keep yourself productive too.
Gotcha. That's cool. So what is your your current touring rig that you guys are using?
Well, there's a couple. I have our big giant touring rig that I was using the entire last album cycle, which has so many redundancies. Like V-Man built our racks, and it's just insane. I think I have 4 different amps in there. There's a Bogner, a Friedman, a Head First, and an Orange. You know what I mean? All in the same rack. Switching system, redundancies there. Also was using a quad Cortex in conjunction with those, along with my, it's not a GCX system. I can't remember the name of the new system I'm using, but it's basically a plate with pedals on it that's like a loop system.
And probably RJM, probably.
That could be, yeah. Brad knows all that tech. I'm just a guitar player. I just, what's this dumb thing do? You plug it in. But a really cool system that'll switch the amplifiers, and I can make patches, and it'll run like the dirty channel with a delay for a lead channel, or the clean channel with like some color from like say a phaser and a small delay and maybe a compressor, where I'm not doing a dance on the pedal board. But I also have a little satellite pedal board out front with a wah that's on a hot plate, along with my MXR like custom shop wah that I use 2 different wahs because they kind of have different characteristics. And then I've got a carbon copy delay out there on that satellite thing that I can play with and make weird noises with. I've got a fuzz on there so I can hit it in certain parts for some thickening bits. And then I've got an overdrive on it just if I want to sweeten the leads up and kind of brighten them up a little bit. Not that there's all that many leads. Depends on the set list, I guess,
Right.
But just on a Pog, I have a Pog out there too because they're kind of fun to mess around with a little bit here and there.
Yeah. I love the Pog or the octave pedal too. That's always good.
Especially through loud amps.
Yeah. For sure. You put a PA behind that and all bets are off. It's great. One of the best things about touring is like walking out on stage, like if we do a sound check and just going shunk shunk and just hearing it echo through the venue.
This is cool.
You
could do that all
little
day.
kid look, and you line back at like Brad, and I'm like, oh, yeah.
That's the shit right there. Exactly. That's so cool. And you're using real cabs on stage.
Yeah, I have an orange cab that they've cut the tweed back on. Bob, our front of house engineer, he's always experimenting with different mics, and he's a gearhead too. He builds amps, friends with Jason Tongs and all that, and real audiophile type of guy. And they're always trying to think of ways to improve the sound, get there easier because it's touring and there's time restrictions and all that stuff. But yeah, so that rig that I was just talking about runs into a full orange cab that's in a larger ISO cab situation with close miking, and I think there might even be a mic towards the back of it, but there's baffling inside there and all that kind of stuff too. So it's as close to having a full stack on stage mic'd up as you can get, and still getting the isolation that you need so that guitar amps aren't bleeding into drum mics and vocal mics and all that stuff.
Right.
But I mean, just recently, and this is sort of blasphemous and sacrilegious, and I told myself, and I told everybody out there that's listening that's in the guitar world that I talked to on my Instagram, I might have fibbed a little bit and said never with the digital modeling shit. But we have new racks for smaller venues, and I do have a quad cortex, but I'm trying to do a workaround with that, and it's working. And I used it at Pappy and Harriet's, and I used it for Sick New World, and it's great. I love it. It's working, but it's still not a real amp. So maybe one of these days, I can get with Dave here, or maybe even Jason, and we can figure out like a one rack unit, something really compact where I can still run, like maybe even if it's a Matrix power amp, or even if I get like an old Simulclass 295 or something to run it, or the Marshall, like what they used to run with Marshall JMPs. I'd like to like stay away from the digital world as much as I possibly can, but it's kind of getting to the point where it's pretty good, and it's functional, and it's making things efficient. You know what I mean? But I'm still hanging on to nothing's ever going to be a tube, really. I mean, you're never really going to get that sag. You're never really going to get that organic, feedback coming back. It's just, it is what it is. But I have that as well. So that's a new thing that we're experimenting with.
Yeah, it's always good just in case, have a backup as well,
Yeah, and there's multiple redundancies. I mean, even with the rack that I have the 4 amps in, there's redundancies. If any of those amps go down, the Cortex is there I can still make noise and still fit in with the band situation.
Right.
Which is tough to do, I mean, when you're talking about tone, it's like, fitting into a situation where there's 8 other guys. It's almost like recording a record. You got to find where things sit in a mix, and when that mix changes daily because of the venue you're in, it's a hurdle. It's a hurdle for the guys like my guitar tech and Bob, or front of house guy, to figure out, all right, how are we going to make this stuff sound good? We got to ring this room out and figure out what kind of frequencies are happening out in this world here.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
I was thinking the same thing, Mario. Synergy. Have you tried the Synergy rack stuff?
I do. I have. I haven't used it live. I actually haven't had a lot of time to play with it. So, and I have it here at my house now. So back behind this door behind me, I've got like all my guitars and extra amps and things are all back in there. So when I was talking earlier about making this amp rack situation, I have a Synergy head and Synergy cabinet, and I think I have every module that they make for it. So that's definitely something I'm excited about putting into this rack thing, because what a great tool that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you could get the Synergy Syn 2, which is a single rack space thing, and put 2 modules in it. So you were talking about that small,
really?
Small preamp, and you could,
Yeah, I'm so clueless when it comes to new gear. Like, I don't even I don't keep up on it unless like I don't even know what like Fender or Charvel or Jackson is doing new unless I see it in a newsletter that they send out that I signed up to. You know what I mean? So
Right.
the part of it is just me being, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but just, ignorant maybe with like what I'm sure there's so much stuff out there that I just have no clue about that I haven't, that if somebody would just right now, like, oh, there's this, and I'd be like, psh.
Yeah, so that's a single rack space, and you can put 2 modules, so you basically can have 4 sounds, and the modules, well, there's all sorts of modules.
And are they powered, or do you have to?
No,
Yeah,
you can have a power amp. You need a one space power amp.
You need a power amp of some sort, but
is there a power amp that you guys are using that's like a 1U that's cool?
I mean, there is a Synergy 1U power amp that's really good. There's a Fryette 1U power amp that's really good.
The LX2.
Right? And are these tube power amps or?
Yep, they're 2 power amps. Yeah.
No shit, and they're 1U.
Yeah, 1U, small. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and you can do some stuff, and it's like there's a B Deluxe module, so that exists, and there's a variety of other stuff. There's Fryette modules, there's Bogner modules, there's all sorts of modules.
Well, shit, I guess it looks like I'm hitting up Delvin at Sweetwater tomorrow.
Well, you know what? That's a good segue for Sweetwater. I'll mention Sweetwater. We're sponsored by Sweetwater, so guys, make sure you hit the. Everybody who's watching, make sure you check out our link below. That's for Sweetwater. We have an affiliate link, and if you purchase anything there, is nothing extra, but just helps our channel out. And let me show this off as well. So this is Jim's guitar, the Stratocaster, Fender Strat. That's Sweetwater. So they wanted me to talk about this, and that they currently have this on sale, and you guys should check out his guitars. And I think looks like they have 2 of them right now.
Yeah, it looks like I think it's since it's the 70th anniversary of the Strat, I think it's time to do an upgraded version of that.
Yeah,
and since I'm tripping out on Floyd Roses, I think we need to put a Floyd in it.
Sure, why not?
That would be nice too. Yeah, and it is the 70th anniversary of the Strat, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's right. So yeah, you guys check out what they have for sale right now. So what would you actually reach out to Fender and update that? Is that something you're working on? Or?
There might be something in the works. I've been kind of going down a wormhole with different Charvels. I got a couple of the made in Japan. It's like a San Dimas Charvel with 24 frets. It looks kind of like it's sort of like a hybrid between a DK24 and a San Dimas, but with 24 frets. But anytime you try to put 24 frets on a proper Strat shaped guitar, they end up looking goofy. So I think it's better to stick with the dinky body style. But I've been tripping out on those and the Virtuoso series Jackson soloists. And still my Strats. I've been buying a lot of old Model 5 Charvels when I was like 16, 17. I had a black Model 5 and I was running it through a Mesa Boogie DC5 head and a Mesa Boogie Road Ready cabinet. And I forgot how mean that setup sounded. I bought like 6 or 7 Model 5s off Reverb lately. And I bought a couple of DC5s. Like the original, I'm sorry, not DC5s, the 50 caliber, which was the first series caliber head that evolved into the DC series. And then from there it evolved into the Nomad. So they progressively got worse. But the 50 caliber, I plugged a 50 caliber into a diesel cabinet with one of these Model 5s that I got. And it's like as close as to what I was playing when I was 16 and 17 as I can possibly get now. And it tore my head off. I was like, even our bass player V-Man was here, and my guitar tech Brad, they like plugged it in, and they're like chung chung chung, and they're like, whoa, and I'm like, yeah, man, whoa, that's a good sound. So been going down those wormholes of those types of guitars, and that's why I would love to like redo sort of an updated Strat that's, got a lot of the features of kind of what the Charvels bring to the table and kind of maybe what the Jacksons bring to the table. It's, it's the age old thing. It's like, well, I like this about that and I like that about this.
Right.
What if we like Frankenstein all this stuff together, and then when you finally do it, you're like, oh, that's not great. I just need to be happy with what's good about that.
Well, it's the same company at least, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
sure,
can at
yeah.
least put the parts together and see how it works out. If it doesn't work out,
I did ask them, I commissioned them to build me essentially a Virtuoso Series Jackson, but with a Fender headstock. So like the Adrian Smith with the big, the big cursive Jackson lettering on it, because I think that's so cool looking.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that turns out. That might turn out really cool. And then if Fender wants to continue and, like do updates to my original Telly and Strat, I'm all about that. But it's kind of like one of those things where it's like not really broken, so maybe we don't need to fix it. And maybe a lot of people are partial to hardtails, and I've been playing a lot of Floyd's lately. That's what I learned to play on, and that's what I'm kind of comfortable with. And I went away from it for a while. Even my early Jacksons that I was playing when we first started touring, they had Floyd's, but I'd block them off, so they were static. But now it's like, you know what, I can tune this low and I can stretch the strings out, and I get the Floyd's to to behave like they should behave no matter what the tuning is. It's just a great tremolo, so why not use it? It's another tool to have in the box.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you figure out how to use one, it's pretty great. And once they're stable. So with Sweetwater, it's the year of the Strat, by the way, for Fender. So guys, make sure you check out the Jim's Strat at Sweetwater, and they're the best place to buy a guitar. So definitely check them out, as well as fixpedalboard.com. All right, our friend Tim at Fix Pedal Boards. And go ahead, Dave.
And all your pedal board accessory needs, little lifts and boxes and doodads and all that fun stuff.
And Thomann.com. All right, guys, we have the links below.
Who might also carry Jim's guitars, maybe.
Probably. I'd be willing to bet. Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, I bought a bunch of guitars off of Sweetwater, and I always have them do the plecking and the setup, and sometimes I'll have them throw my pickups in a particular guitar if it doesn't have them. And Delvin's really cool over there. He's really helpful. And it's just, I have guitar acquisition syndrome. So,
So how do you like the when they do the plec for you? How does that?
It's good. I mean, some of the guitars, I mainly do it like if I'm going to buy like a Gibson V or something like that doesn't have a compound radius. Most of the guitars with compound radiuses I don't mess with, unless it's like a lower model, like say a DK24 Charvel. Sometimes they'll get those and the fretwork isn't the most awesome. Like there'll be a high fret here or there. So it's nice to just have it done that way. When I'm at home, I like to run bedroom guitar action. I like to slam it right on top of the frets, just to the point where I can still get a 2.5 step bend above the 15th fret, or above the 12th fret, and have it still be that low, which isn't always ideal, but that's what I did when I was a kid learning how to play guitar. That's that bedroom shredder.
Right.
You have to push on the strings, almost like having a scalloped type of deal.
Yeah.
But it works out good. I kind of dig it on some guitars, and on other guitars, I don't really notice that it's been plecked. I guess it depends on the radius and the fret wire size and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you like? We've had this debate numerous times. Do you like nickel or stainless frets? Have you played stainless frets?
I do. I have a couple of guitars that have stainless frets, and I don't know that I notice a huge difference. I haven't put my mind into really shooting them out to see what I like better. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've heard some people say stainless are a pain in the ass because once you do get a ding in it, it's kind of really hard to do a fret job on them and crown them or whatever.
Funny you say that, because I actually in my Wolfgang, I don't know how I got it, but on the 4th fret by the G string, there's a scratch in the fret. And every time I go for a little bend on that area, I can feel it. And now I'm like, oh, I know I got to bring it somewhere, and they're going to be like, well, we can't just fix that one fret. We're going to have to like
Yeah.
level everything.
Level the whole thing.
Right.
Level dress the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to suck. And I love the rest of the guitar. It's like perfect, but they're going to have to mess with everything. So
I think I have a DK24. It's not here. It's with our touring gear in storage right now. It might be in Daytona showing up with that gear. I had a reverse headstock DK24 made. Pretty sure it has stainless frets, and it's pretty buttery. I like that buttery, nice. Even if I've had a guitar that's been sitting around for a few months, I'll take the strings off and I'll use that. What's it called? The Gorgamite or whatever.
Gorgamite. Yeah.
And I'll polish the frets real good. Just so they're nice, and there's that word again, buttery. You know what I mean?
How many guitars do you have?
Not as many as I used to. I have a buddy at Wild West Guitars, Ian, and I go through freak out. I freak out like every couple of years. At one point I probably had 250 guitars.
I saw a video where you had a room where there was like a whole thing.
Yeah, that's right behind that door. I've got like racks full of guitars out there. Out there right now, there's probably close to 100 guitars out there now, and then there's probably another 100 guitars that are in storage at EFM with the band gear. And then in the vaults that I tour with, that's including those guitars that I tour with. But I bring probably 10, 12 guitars on tour with me at least. 2 different tunings, backup for each guitar type of thing. I'm not like Rick Nielsen, where I bring like 1,000 guitars out on tour with me, but still quite a bit.
It gets expensive to do that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I'm not going to bring out a 58 Carina V to...
Right.
Hell no.
I wish.
To a festival in the desert. No.
So, what do you got? What are you planning on playing when you get to Rockville? What guitars are you going to be using?
I think I'm going to be using a lot of the same guitars I used at Sick New World. I believe it's going to be the same rig. It's a lot of my Charvel Sandema signature models. It's a couple of my Fender Strat signature models, a couple of Jazzmaster signature models, and I brought a black Model 5. It's a 1988 Model 5 that I got off a Reverb that we threw my pickups in. I had a local guitar luthier here in Florida kind of do some work to it. LRC Guitars set it up for me, and then Brad went up and finished the setup on it for what I'm into. So I have that. I'm trying to bring some of these old guitars out, especially since we're getting ready to do this 25th anniversary stuff, and we're probably going to be playing the first album in its entirety. So I'm probably going to swap all those guitars out, and I have a couple of Jacksons and a couple of PRSs that I used way back to 2000. And I'm going to bring those guitars with me, and similar guitars that I had, let's say, up to the Subliminal Verse tour cycle. Just since we're going retro like that, we're wearing the boiler suits again. We have the old mask kind of vibes going on. I kind of want to tip the hat to that era and bring more of the guitars that I was using at that time with me. And fortunately or unfortunately, that was before I was endorsed by Fender, but now Fender is Jackson. So if there's Jacksons that I have on stage, it still fits under that umbrella with them. And the PRSs, that's just kind of a nostalgic kind of cool thing that, I think I still have a couple of those laying around here somewhere.
Which model PRS was it? 24 or?
I had custom 24s made with one volume knob and one 3-way selector. Nothing special, just mahogany. They were matte guitars. I had a couple made in different colors, like kind of a candy apple red one that's really good. That one sounds like a violin. It's got a really unique sound to it. But they're all just pretty straightforward. Nothing too insane. But ironically, it's a company that's known for its like beautiful woods, and private collection, you know, like tops and all that stuff. And I have fucking matte black guitars, but
There's something I love about that, though.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm sure you don't have to worry about them getting a ding or anything. You know.
Well, that's just it. It's Slipknot. I mean, things take abuse. I remember one time when we do Split It Out, we do the sit down part, and I used to take my guitar off and go over to Clown's side of the stage, and I'd just throw my guitar on his big bass drum that he would hit next to the kegs and the toms, and he would, you know, he'd turn the volume up and he'd kind of play around with it and make noise with it and all that stuff. And the last time I ever did that, I took one of my PRS custom 24s and I threw it up there, and I walked away to see what he, you know, just to kind of do my thing until it was time to pick it back up and play again. And he was like going like this. And then I watched him just go, he looked down at the guitar and he went and just threw it off the top of his drums, and it hit the ground and it split. Where the neck glues onto the body, like the whole body just split in half right there. And like,
you're like, yeah.
And I was just like, okay, cool. So that's how that's going to be.
Next.
So yeah, they do, you know, it's kind of, I wouldn't want to take any like really like high value custom old like collector vintage guitars on the road, just because you never know what's going to happen. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. You mind if I jump over to some questions that we have? We got a lot of people in the chat.
Oh, there's a chat.
Yeah, you can actually, if I don't know if you're able on what device you're looking at, but we have a whole chat of live people where it says comments.
Right on.
But lots of people. We got over 647 people watching right now.
Nice.
So guys, make sure you hit subscribe, please, and click the bell for notifications. And we've got tons of questions here.
Yeah, let's hit them, man. As many as you want.
Let's go to Olivia in the regular chat here. Hey, Jim, do you have a particular routine or environment that helps you get into a creative mindset?
I used to. So I just moved recently. But my old house that I had up in Jacksonville had a garage that backed up to the like a swamp. It was on Pottsburg Creek. And that's where I did the majority of writing for, like, say, The Gray Chapter and We Are Not Your Kind. And that garage, for whatever reason, had such a cool vibe in it. It just felt like things would effortlessly kind of flow. I'm trying to recreate that here in the new place that I have. You know, I think we talked about that a little bit early when we first started with, like, the rack and the lighting and all this kind of stuff like that. But you know, I want to make this kind of like my fortress of solitude to like kind of dive into that creative mode where I feel like I can just kind of tune out the rest of the world and let those things happen.
Gotcha. Awesome. Got some other chats here. Let's see. Rice and Bison. What's up, man? Junior Sig Friedman BE mixed with an orange. Haha, love you, Jim. Huge inspiration for me as a guitar player.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's really a question for Dave, isn't
it? Well, you know.
Hey, it works.
Yeah, I mean, so I had Adrian from Orange make me. I have a custom one-off Mark. It was made from the Mark III Rocker Verb series, which to me were great amps, but they were a little bit like maybe too gainy, which is another thing we can talk about later, like gain structure and gain stages and how I use my preamp sections on all the amps that I use and what I've learned about that in the future. But with Bob, who's an audiophile, like we were kind of going in between that custom amp Adrian made and the last Friedman that I was using on stage, which was the HBE Deluxe.
Yeah.
And they were really very similar, you know, in how they responded. The microphone would respond to them, how the speakers would respond to them. The Orange had like a little bit of a snarl that, here we go, where tone is subjective to the person. Like that can either be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you're trying to fit that into a mix, how you're trying to not mask frequencies with another guitar or even bass guitar. things like that. And at the end of the day, the Friedman was just more articulate. So I don't know if, like, combining that, I mean, I'm sure Dave, you probably already use like very similar circuitry, like how many different.
To be honest, I don't even know what that amp, what the circuitry is like in that amp. I'd have to look at it. But,
I don't either. I'm so ignorant when it comes to building amps. I know what tubes are in a lot of the amps that I like to use, and other than that, how much gain does it make? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Once it starts talking about capacitors and resistors, I start losing.
I
I have no idea what you guys are talking
My
about.
life.
That's all a mystery to me. Well, Rice and Bison, thanks for the question. Let's see. We also have Road Skull. Thanks for the super chat. Hey Jim, I played in Des Moines scene for a bit when you were in Atomic Opera. You always had killer tone with your Boogie 50 caliber.
That's exactly what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
50 caliber. I bought 2 of them off of Reverb, and one of them I bought the guy that I bought it off had modified it. He made a 16 ohm speaker out for it because they only had 2 4s and an 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also changed the transformer, and I couldn't tell you what transformer he put into it, but he upgraded the stock Mesa transformer and took all the. It's kind of like wood grain. He took the Tolex off of it and sanded it down and made it really nice. But that amp is amazing. And what's really funny is Mick and I were talking about that the last show we did. I can't remember who we were talking to, but Mick was talking about how he would come to Atomic Opera shows back in the day because he dug my guitar tone so much back then. And, and I was always playing Mesas back then. Even in the early Slipknot days, I was using DC 10s and the 100-watt DC versions. But they didn't sound anything like the caliber series. There's just something really special about those 50 calibers. They snarl. They have a great tone. They've got that EQ. And Mick was like, yeah, I read up a little bit on those amps. And what it was it was like an economical version of the Mark IIc or the Mark V that was out at that time. So that, people like me could afford them, even though I had to sell everything I owned, including a guitar and, to get one. I don't remember what they were priced at back then, but I was.
They're still expensive.
Yeah, I'm sure they probably still are. But really great heads, and for a while there, I was playing it through. I had a Strat. What is it? The Strat Pro, the Strat Plus, maybe the one with the lace sensor pickups in it.
Yeah.
Roller nut. I think it was like a 93. And even that guitar with the lace sensors in it sounded just amazing through that amp. But I remember having to do tricks with it to because there's not really I don't think there's really a dedicated clean channel. There's like a push pull for it. But, it made you work a little bit. But it had, damn, those amps sound good. But yeah, Road Skull. Wow.
That's awesome.
Digging back into the past.
Yeah.
What comes around goes around, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned a good friend of ours, Jason Tong from Head First. Jason's been on the show, so I understand you use one of his amps, right?
Yeah, I was using Altas on the last run we did before we kind of packed everything up to get ready for what we're doing now. I was using Altas 100s. And then I wanted one for the jam room, so I asked him if he could make me just a 50 watter, like a sort of scaled down version of that head, which I have right here underneath one of these 50 calibers we're talking about. And man, just a really clear, great sounding head. It's so hard to explain. Explaining tone is
it's hard, yeah.
What give somebody a bunch of hot coals and put them in their hand and say that's red. How else do you explain tone? Musical maybe would be a word I'm looking for. Articulate is definitely a thing, but I'm also trying to train myself. So since I was 15, 16 years old and I had this Boogie amp, every amp I've had since then, even well up into the Slipknot days, even up to let's say the last record we did, I would always just push the fuck out of my preamp section. It'd always be cranked up to 10. it's just what I was used to. It's kind of like a learned behavior that I did to myself, and I don't know if it's like a superstitious thing or something, but I was like, it's got to be that way. That way I don't have to, put an overdrive in front of it or boost it with any kind of distortion. I'm using the amp and all of its distortion. And then when we worked with Joe Barisi, I started learning that if I back that gain off, all of a sudden more tone starts popping through and more musical sounds start popping through. And yes, you have to dig in a little harder, and yeah, your pinch harmonics might not come out as easily, and you may have to work a little bit harder as a guitar player, and it can be more unforgiving, but the reward to that is just a way better sounding amp. So I've been like really doing that with any of the amps, even if it's like an old block letter 5150. I'm like pulling the gain back like to 4.5, just pushing 5, just to where it starts to break up a little bit more. And it's like, I don't know why I'm that dumb, but it's like a kind of like a revelation that hit me later on. It's like, wow, I wish I would have had this revelation when I was, like 20. Probably could have put out a bunch of, better sound.
Less gain is more.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, Dave's been talking about that forever.
More punch, more attack, more everything. It's more. It's just it doesn't turn into a ball of compressed mush.
Compressed much, exactly, 100%. And me being like stubborn or whatever, like even working with Fiddleman, but and guys like that, I'm like, this is how I said it, whatever. I don't care about like the mid and the treble and whatever EQs, whatever. We got to set that however it's going to sit in the mix. So, but I think my gain, because especially when you're in a studio environment where you're listening to monitors and you're hearing a mic'd off cabinet that's in another room, that's really under a microscope and really unforgiving. So, I really trained myself to learn how to dig in and play more articulately. But, like I said, the rewards to that are like immense,
Yeah. It's interesting because people would think that you guys are probably maxing the gain and doing as much gain as you could, with Slipknot, and it's good to hear.
I kind of was up until the last couple of years of touring, where I kind of was like, all right, it's time to grow up and add more mids, back the gain off.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
And there's also, certain things are good for when you're just kind of like noodling around at home and practicing by yourself. And then when you get into not just a band situation, but a studio or a live situation where, you got a guy that's trying to mix everything together, and you got to give him good shit to work with. Guitars are meant to sit in a certain frequency range. Bass guitars are meant to sit in another frequency range. And then you add auxiliary drums that are real low frequency, along with a full-on drummer, and then a DJ and a guy hitting samples. There's so many frequencies that can mask each other. Like, I'm not able to just set an amp and have my own signature tone.
Right.
I have to. I work with. I don't have to, but I do work with our sound guy and with Mick, so that Mick and I's guitar tones complement each other. Like, whatever frequencies my amp is missing, his pick up, and then that gives Bob the opportunity to do a spread on the panning to where it comes together, and we're not masking each other's frequencies and the basses, and we're not jumping all over bass frequencies and things like that, which is also another trick to do when you tune low like we do.
Right. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's smart. I mean, you really need to do that, especially live,
or you won't hear anything.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It turns back into that mush no matter how much gain you pull out of it.
So you mentioned Fiddleman. Does he work with you guys too?
We haven't worked with Fiddleman for a while. We wanted to do the last record with Fiddleman, but he was real busy doing Metallica stuff at the time, and he was trying to work out a way that he could, like, when he wasn't up working with Metallica, he could sort of like moonlight and come work with us. But it's just too much, man. Like, when you're working on a record, it's a pretty intense project, and you really need to kind of maintain your focus in one area. And we were a little bit unprepared to do our last record. Like, it was coming off of COVID. everything was locked down, especially LA was like locking down and then opening up and then relocking down, and studios were real weird. It was really hard to like kind of fit in with the protocol of everything. And we've always wanted to work with Joe, and Joe happened to be free. And, you know, unfortunately for us and for Joe, we weren't like 100% prepared to do a record with Joe, which God bless him. He like rose to the occasion and he did the best he could. But we kind of did that record backwards from how you would normally track a record. Mm. And you know, it's not to say you can't do a record like that, but that record was sort of pieced together, and to me, it's blatantly obvious. When you listen to a record, it's like, you know, you can hear a vibe, you can hear the energy coming through the speakers, and if you're not playing as a full band, it's not going to push the speakers the same way. Mm-hmm. You know, so it was a big learning experience. It was a big, like, you know, kind of what are we doing and how are we doing this, but also given the circumstances that we were put under with all these restrictions and this like COVID shit that was going on and all that. I mean, I think we did the best we could for what we had. I mean, we couldn't even get together as a band to write music together. I mean, it was literally like taking bits of things that people were doing on their own and sending them back and forth to each other and putting it together, and then trying to decide, well, which one of these things are we going to work on? And it was a little disjointed, but now I think everything's relaxed enough that we can get back to the point where we can do a for real record where we do it as a unit, as the band we are, with the work ethic that we have, and you know, make it good. And hopefully Joe will be a part of that, because you know, I really enjoyed working with him.
Awesome. Cool. When's the what's the plan for when you're going to, you know, get in the studio and start doing stuff like that?
We haven't really talked like seriously about that yet. In my personal opinion, we have a ton of music that was written during COVID, and I think a lot of it's not good. And I think it's confusing us. I think we're like spending too much time thinking about how we can put more work into it and bring it up to the level that it needs to be at. But in my opinion, like, if the nature of a song is what the nature of a song is, you can work on it until you're blue in the face. And no matter how many times you rewrite the riff, no matter how many times you rearrange the song, it's not changing the nature of what it is. And I think we're hanging on to that a little too much. So in my opinion, it's like, I just want to like forget about all that shit. You know, Eloy's in the band now. We got this new, amazing, hard-hitting, world-class drummer that's breathed the new life into the way even I'm approaching guitar and guitar playing. Let's take this opportunity to come out on fire and be the kings that we need to be again. You know,
right.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, that's kind of my philosophy. But in the meantime, you know, we have this 25th anniversary thing going on. We've got a handful of shows going until the end of the year, and we kind of want to focus on that before we start talking about, like, you know, getting into a studio and like really putting the work in.
Right. It makes sense. Thank you. Pedrito is best. Thank you. Dave, does a Boss CE1 have a mono or stereo input?
It's mono.
Okay.
Mono input, stereo output.
I always love when we have a guest on and someone just throws out a question to you. They're just like,
I mean, what a better opportunity to talk.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well ask. Dave.
Might as well ask. It's a simple answer. Quick.
Chris Puckett, what's up going on, man? Thanks for the super chat. Jim saw Slipknot for the first time in 2021 at Incarceration. Incarceration. Oh, Incarceration. I got you. Wow. Did you ever think of putting a Floyd Rose on your white Jazz Master signature guitar? I want to do that. That'd be cool.
Not on the signature model guitar. I do have a Jazz Master that Alex Perez made for me that has a Floyd on it. And it's really cool. I like playing that guitar a lot. I don't really know how I've already pissed off the Telly and Jazz Master people enough with making like sort of a metal minimalist sort of guitar, and people like, that's not a Jazz Master, that's not a Telly, and da 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 da. And and all that. So
Tough.
I guess I could insult them even more by throwing a Floyd on it. So.
I think you should. I like it.
I don't think I've ever seen a Floyd Rose on a Jazzmaster before.
I have one, and it's not one of my white ones. It's just kind of a Frankenstein that Alex Perez over at Fender made for me.
Oh, okay.
And it's a black one, and it's got like a patinaed copper pick guard on it, and it's got a black Floyd on it, and it's a really cool guitar. But the trick with that is figuring out where to put the pickup selector so it's not in the way of the arm of the Floyd.
Right. Yeah. Gotcha. Let's go Flank and Spank.
There's going to be some good names.
There's always.
Well, no. Our favorite name of someone. I don't know if they're here tonight, but go ahead.
Scent of a wheel pill. Scent of a wheelchair pillow.
Whoa.
Scent of a wheelchair pillow.
I'm like going, wow.
Yeah, that is. He must have been thinking of something when he came up with that one. How do I get started in modifying amps? I have modded a few guitar pedals. Start watching Jason Tong's channel.
Yes, that's a good one. You could also take Bruce Egnator's amp making class. That might be fun for you. That's a good one. You should probably do that because you'll learn more probably there than you will most places. And then gather just information online, man. Just like you have to there's some websites and there's some different information available out there. Search around. And you'll, once you start doing it, you might make a few mistakes, but you'll start learning.
Yep. Okay. So he wants to modify his Vox AC30. Yeah, definitely look into it. You're going to have to practice on something else before you dive into that.
And it'd be cool to hear that 800 2022 or 2203 too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are always fun modded.
Those are always
for sure.
Mod. Yeah, definitely.
Done 10 million of them.
Or so.
And he loves his Pink Taco Synergy modules. Awesome. Thanks, man. Drew Terlizzi, I think. Jim, what was your input into the new Uberschall 2?
I didn't really have a whole lot. Reinhold brought what a cool dude Reinhold is too. That guy, it was his girlfriend's birthday and he brought like 4 amps over to the studio and then sat there and explained how they, this one has this character and you do this, and it's like, it's like his girlfriend's birthday and she's like sitting there like in the hallway, kind of like just chilling, waiting. And he's just like in full on like mode. Mm-hmm. That was a amazing amp. And I got to mess with the prototype one in the studio. That was a long time ago. I did give him notes on what I thought the amp needed along with Fiddleman, because it was when we were working on We Are Not Your Kind when he brought that stuff through. I can't remember. That was so long ago. I can't remember what it was or what. I remember it might have been a little. Was that We Are Not Your Kind? No, that might have been this last record. It's all a blur now. Anyways, there was something going on with the amp where it was like a little bit noisy because it was the prototype one, and it was like a little bit finicky. It was making some weird noises. But when it did work, it had a lot of really cool stuff going on with it. And I don't even know if I followed up. Did that amp actually release? Is that out? The Uberschall 2, the second iteration of that amp?
Think so.
I really don't know.
I don't know for sure.
Well, if that's out, I got to get one because at least the prototype was really cool. I remember it being real extreme. Like talking about that game thing to where I felt like if I did that thing that we talked about earlier with backing the gain off, I don't think I would notice a whole lot.
It is out. The Uberschall Mark II is out.
All right, I'm gonna have to get one of those.
It's an EL34 version. So.
Yeah. I kind of went to EL30 after I stopped using the boogie stuff. Pretty much I was using Rivera's for a while, and we would experiment. Paul Rivera Jr. was really cool with you know, if I had an idea to throw like 6550s into an amp or KT88, just play with the power section a little bit. It was cool. I've got some knucklehead reverbs that have like KT88s in them, and I think one with 6550s. And well, even the orange guys were cool like that. I had an orange rock reverb, the first generation of the rock reverb that had 6550s in it too. And I really don't think it improved or made anything better to kind of mess with that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I always like. There's a couple people have asked me to put KT88s in B100 Deluxes and stuff, and that does something. That's for sure.
yeah,
It's pretty cool.
I don't, you know, it can be cool. I mean, I know I really enjoyed I really liked the knucklehead reverbs that I had that we played with that in. But, you know, once I went away from Boogie and I started using more of the EL34 vibe, what are they, the EC, the EL34 equivalent that Orange uses, what is it, an EC?
Like 6CA7 or?
Well, that's the preamp, right? The preamp tube.
No, 6CA7 is another alternate power tube.
That's what it is. That's
Yeah.
what 6CA7.
Yeah.
They're just good. They have that snark, that barky snarl kind of thing going on, which is good for my particular use, being in a band where we tune low and there's two guitar players and that whole kind of vibe.
Right.
You know, it kind of helps with that mid-range punch and to help cut through a little bit better. And but I love 6L6s too. Like these 50 calibers I have 6L6s in them, and they have a really great thing happening with them too.
Yeah.
Tara Root. Any relation?
No, I'm an only child.
Which awards are on your garage wall? She wants to know. Will Slipknot come to Colorado on your next tour? I loved you. You're everything to me. Okay.
Oh,
there you go.
All right. Hold on. Let me see. Which awards are on your garage wall? Well, right now there's none. Like I said, I just moved to a new place, so all of like the plaques and record stuff and like the Grammy and all that stuff, that's in the kind of the main part of the house, which I may move all that stuff out here. But since this is going to be a studio, I might be doing some sound deadening on the walls. You know, since there's a drum set here and it's pretty reflective in this room with the tile floors and everything. Eventually I might move all that stuff out to the garage. What was the other part of the question? Or Colorado? Are we going to Colorado?
Yeah. Will you be coming to Colorado?
I don't look at our schedule. I'm sure we probably will be coming to Colorado. If I look at our schedule ahead of time, I get depressed because it's almost like looking into what I can't do, because, you know, when you're on tour, stuck in a bus, you're stuck in a hotel room, you know, that whole thing. So in order to maintain my own sanity, I just, until the last minute, I don't look to see where we're going.
Yeah, I can understand that. It gets you anxious, right? You start thinking
a little
about
bit, yeah. It kind of gets me a little bit like, and I get like a little bit irritable, and like if people are like hitting me up about shows or whatever, like even tour managers, we would get off tour. Like, let's just say we were in Europe for 5 weeks. I just get off a plane. I just get home. I haven't even unpacked my suitcase. It's a day after I've been home, and I'm already getting an email about flights for the next tour and which one I want to choose, and it just makes me want to put my fucking head through a wall. I just got home. Let me like just
give me
for a minute, you know what I mean?
Yeah, let me
chill out for a couple days.
Yeah, some downtime. You know, you got to have downtime. Johnny Nil, Jim, what's the most difficult Slipknot song to play live?
That's a hard one, because, you know, when you play songs so many times, it becomes muscle memory, and you don't even really think about what you're playing half the time. I think maybe The Nameless I would have to put up there, just because it's, you know, it's got some like really fast, like 16th note, that stuff going on. That song has so many different like attitudes, and there's also a switch into like a really clean pedal tone, like almost Beatlesy sounding thing that happens, and keeping the timing of all that in with like what the sampler's doing, what Sid's doing, and it's just intricate. So that's on the like more difficult sort of framework. But yeah, I don't know. We have some difficult songs that we haven't necessarily played live yet, which maybe we'll start throwing those in eventually. I'm brain farting on the names of these particular tunes at the moment, but songs that I can remember we played in the not too distant past. Like the Nameless is one that's just on there because that's a tight part to lock in with the snare riff and stuff like that. You got to really be like tight with the drummer on that bit.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Johnny. Boner Jams. We
Boner
covered.
Jam 09.
we kind of talked about this already. Hey Jim, have you guys been writing, recording new music? If so, has Eloy contributed to the writing process?
Yeah, we haven't really started doing that yet. We will be doing that real soon. Eloy has sent me some drum loops. He emailed me some. Eloy does a lot of drum videos on his own, and play alongs in his like home studio and stuff like that. So he sent me like 5 or 6 like minute from like a minute long to one that's a couple minutes long of just like him playing drums. And I downloaded those onto my computer and I converted them into files that I could import into Pro Tools. And I spent some time like kind of like trying to write some riffs to him. And it was a little bit difficult because he basically sent me like 2-minute long drum solos. And I'm not like really good at like finding a bit, chopping it out, and then looping it to make that like, okay, this sounds like it could be like an intro riff on the drums, and this sounds like it could be like a verse riff on the drums, because the particular ones that he sent me, it's like a lot of real stunt drumming and stuff, like really busy stuff, and I wrote riffs to most all of it, and there's one in particular that I'm thinking about that if it does turn into a song, it's going to be an awfully chaotic song, which could be really cool. So yes and no, he's contributing, but we haven't really gotten there yet.
Yeah,
we're trying to get these shows under our belt first, and then it's time to like put our nose to the grindstone and start the creative writing process.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, thanks, Boner. Jim Bob Severts, what's up, man? Does Jim remember sound checking the small hours?
Yeah, we used to do that a lot.
What is that, a club?
No, it's I think he's talking about the song from the Garage EP from Metallica, the 599 or 598 Garage EP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes Mick and I'll like play that back and forth, and it's like it's a fun riff. That's one of my favorite Metallica records, even though it's a bunch of covers,
Huh. I haven't heard that one.
It's a good one. Pop it on when we're done and have a listen.
What's the name of the album?
It's the 598 EP, the Garage Days Revisited.
Oh, the Garage Days. Yeah. That's just the one that I've never listened to.
Yeah, it's pretty damn good.
Okay.
I think that's the one. I think they did that like right when Newstead joined the band.
Right, I think so.
Yeah. Serial Killer 14. Hey Jim, I just want to say thank you for being the biggest influence when it comes to playing guitar. I can't wait to see you in Austin.
Yeah, I can't wait to be in Austin. I love that town. That's a good town.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
That's a music town, that's for sure.
It's a really killer music town. There's some really great motorcycle riding there in hill country. There's some really great barbecue there. The venue's always great there. The people are always great there. And Joe does his podcast from there. So, maybe I'll be able to pop into the Comedy Mothership and see what that's all about.
That's cool. Let's see. Next one, Road Skull. Hey Jim, Monday nights at the Runway or weekends at Center Stage?
Wow. Well, Monday nights at the Runway were cool because pitchers of beer were only like a quarter. This is going back to when I was playing in local bands in Des Moines. There was a club called the Runway, and then there was another club called Center Stage that we would go to, and the band I was in would play. So what we would do is we would take like a bar that played live music, and on Sundays we'd try to do all age shows there with our bands, and we'd sell wristbands to people that were 21 and over, and anyone with a wristband was underage could still get in to watch the show. And we'd sell merch. We'd put on our own shows. I mean, we had there was a pretty good music scene in Des Moines at that time. A lot of different bands, and everybody was really proactive, making flyers, promoting themselves as maybe like a miniature version of what was happening on the Sunset Strip in the '80s, type of thing, you know.
Right.
And there were Harry Mary's. There was a lot of clubs that Jeff Wright owned. Like the Hydrant or the Laughing Iguana. Harry Mary's was like the good. He would have bands like Primus and Tool in there before anybody had ever even heard of these guys. And Center Stage, you'd have these like bands that were like cover bands that would tour these Midwest circuits. Bands like the Saturn Cats and stuff like that would play there. Like they'd play there for like a week, like Tuesday through Saturday night or something like that. And then we'd be able to do our all age shows on Sundays. And I would always go, me and all my friends, like even before I was old enough to drink, we were going to the Runway. And because I was tall and looked older for my age, they'd let me in. They wouldn't card me, and we could blast it on 25-cent pitchers and all that, and blah, blah, blah. It's throwback to the past.
Don't you love those days? The good old days.
And now it's $25 pitchers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, the good old days. Tony Smith, thanks for the super chat. I don't see your question. There's another. There it is. What's a song you've never played live in SK you really want to play?
That's a tough one. We kind of. Oh, you know what? Liar's Funeral. I really want to play that song live. I don't know. It's one of the tunes I wrote that was on like We Are Not Your Kind, and I'm really proud of it. And it's got a lot of really cool things happening in it. It's got like a lot of really cool, clean, moody sections. And when it gets heavy, it gets really heavy, like heavy enough to the point where Corey sang so heavy on it. I don't know that I've heard Corey sing in that sort of timbre of heaviness with his voice, like real guttural, and the chorus, it's got this really soaring chorus and Corey's vocal melody on it, and his the lyrical content of it, the way he performs it. I just really like that song, and it just hits all the stuff that I'm into. Like as far as like, if somebody was to ask me like, what kind of song would you want to write? Like that's kind of it. It's got like some earnest strumming, acoustic overdubs on it, and it kind of checks a lot of boxes for like stuff that I'm into and the bands that I listen to out of Slipknot that I was able to sort of bring into what turned into, in my opinion, a really great Slipknot song. So Liar's Funeral would have to be that one.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. Marcelo, hey Jim, happy you guys chose Eloy as Slipknot's new drummer. The guy's incredible, and he makes us Brazilians proud.
I mean, we didn't even try anybody else. It was Eloy's name came up, and he contacted us actually about wanting to be a part of it, and started sending a bunch of videos in. And I think him and our bass player might have had a little bit of a relationship before. I think they knew each other. They had mutual friends, and V-Man's really in tune with like, a lot of really great like proggy, heavy like musicians that are passionate about their instruments. and it just seemed like a no-brainer. And he's really respectful, you know, of the legacy of Joey, and Joey was a huge influence on him, and he's so humble. The dude has so much humility, and you can tell he just like lives and breathes his craft, and to the point where I see his passion in it, and it ignites my passion for my instrument. And you know, and Brazilians, South Americans in general, are so passionate about what they do. Our manager told me he was out to dinner with 4 or 5 promoters from South America, and they were all really stoked. They're all like, "It's so good you've got a Brazilian drummer in Slipknot now. We kind of feel like we won the World Cup." And you know, yeah, it's like it's a cool feeling, you know. And God, he just fits in so well. It's like, I don't know, man. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things I could say about it. I'm just glad it happened when it did.
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
That's exciting.
And we're lucky to have him. You know, we are really lucky to have that dude.
That's cool. Diavan, thanks for the super chat. Jim, you are our Chewbacca. Can you talk a little about look outside your window? You are Chewbacca.
Okay.
Like, what do you say to that? I don't know what you say to that.
I don't know what to say.
I don't speak Chewbaccan. Look outside your window. I mean, that's something that we did, you know, recording recording that record was tough. Not the Look Outside Your record, but you know, when we were doing the sessions for, what record was that? What fucking album was that off of? Why am I having such a brain fart? Anyways, the sessions for that record were so, like, I don't know, man. What's the word I'm looking for? Tough. There was a lot of division in the band at that point. So we moved a tape machine and a board up to the farmhouse where the dude that owned the studio was living, and we put all this stuff together up there, and it just sort of evolved. It was all an evolution. Like, Clown would just sit down on the drums, he'd play a pattern, I'd riff around to it, the engineer would record as we're going, and then we would just like layer it and build it. And you know, we'd try to get Corey to come up and sing on it when he got a chance. You know, we'd pull whoever wasn't doing anything from the band up. Sid spent a lot of time working with us on it, and it's just kind of like different. It was really the first time we approached writing music without thinking it had to be like heavy or kind of metal in any sense of the term. And you know, we were really sort of exploring the, like, Slipknot and the hanging out with Ravi Shankar phase, maybe, or something, you know, like the trying to get into our Pink Floyd world, you know. And it helped us like learn how to communicate with each other, to write these sort of more like neural or experimental sort of things, and to look at music without it being so structured, you know, like instead of like, you know, like a pop sort of like formula to write, or a, you know, intro, verse, chorus. Like, let's just create vibes with every one of these songs and see where they take us. And it was a really fun project, and I'd love to do something like that again, but we haven't even released that. So I told Clown a few years ago, I was like, dude, I'm just going to put it up on YouTube. I'm just going to give it to everyone, because it's just, you know, it's shit we did on the side, and I think people need to hear it. I mean, there's kind of been so much hype, and it's been so long since I've listened to it. I couldn't even tell you what. I might listen to it today and go, oh, wow, this is garbage. What were we thinking? You know what I mean? But I may listen to it and go, oh, wow, like we were really like going down some wormholes with this stuff, you know?
It's always cool to go back and listen to stuff,
Yeah, I'd like to maybe this week, after we get Rockville under our belt, I'll try to pull it up and give it another listen. But I have a feeling if I listen to it again, I'm going to have to start putting more pressure on Clown to release it. It's like, come on, dude, we got to release this. Unless he's thinking, he may be thinking we're going to slowly integrate this stuff into the Slipknot world. So maybe it'll creep in to Slipknot, and maybe it won't be its own thing. I mean, who knows?
Gotcha.
It's our Chinese democracy.
Josh Ellicott, thanks for the super chat, but I don't see your question, man. Sorry. Mr. Woodchuck, Jim, do you practice more with real amps at home, or have you shifted to digital?
Well, I rarely practice, which my discipline is absolutely awful. I go through phases with it. And that depends. If I'm in the house noodling around on the couch, I'll be playing through like a little digital, like a Boss Katana or something, still digital processor. Here in the house, like on the wall there, I've got that Tone Master Pro Fender thing that I've been using. And then over here, I've got a 5150 block letter. I've got a two Boogie 50 calibers. I've got a Diesel Herbert and a Headfirst Alta. And I would say about 60% of the time when I'm out here in the studio, I'm playing through a real amp into my ISO cab. And then the rest of the time I'm, playing through this Tone Master, because I'm probably playing Call of Duty. And while I'm waiting for a lobby to open up, I'll just pick up a guitar through the Tone Master and play noodle a little bit that way. But as far as like practicing, I wish I had that discipline. I just don't have the discipline to like woodshed, and I go through phases with it. So sometimes I get really into, why am I so inconsistent? And it's because I don't practice the way I should. And when I do practice, I'm probably teaching myself bad habits. And I find myself repeating the same things over and over again. So every once in a while, I'll stumble onto a pattern or something that helps with my alternate picking, and then I'll lean into it. And when I do that, I notice it's like, wow, man, I'm doing staccato picking so fast right now, it almost sounds legato. And it's like, why can't I do this every day? Why can't
Right.
Yeah. I have other interests too, and I don't want to just completely burn myself out on it. That's another thing that happens too when you tour for a living. Like, the last thing I want to do after being on the road for 5 weeks is pick up a guitar when I've just had one in my hands every night for the past month and a half or whatever.
It's just like, I don't want to hear any guitar. I don't want to touch any guitar. I don't want
Yeah, but then you miss it after a while. And like I said, when your hobby turns into work, sometimes it can feel like work, but I have to remember and kind of bring myself back to the realization that what I do for a living is, I'm blessed to do it and I'm lucky to do it. And then my love affair with that instrument pops back up. And, like I said, when we started this thing, I'm like really digging these Model 5s and these Virtuoso Series Jacksons at the moment. And they're fun to pick up, even if I'm just hitting power chords and noodling around with like shapes of 3-note per string scales and arpeggiations of all that. It's like, oh God, this neck feels great. Oh, let's go listen to that conk, conk, conk. Listen to that mid range is punching. You know what I mean? And then it's hard to get a guitar out of my hand. If I pick up a guitar at like 10 o'clock at night, and the next thing I know, it's 5 in the morning, and I'm like, oh shit, I should probably go to bed before the sun comes up, type of thing.
Yeah, that's as opposed to practicing. I mean, that is practicing. I mean, but you're
it is. It's
you're just writing, having fun.
Yeah, maintaining muscle memory, all that stuff. But I tend to reinforce bad habits with my playing, and get into the same patterns, playing the same patterns over and over again. So I try to, if I do sit down to practice, I try to break myself out of those, those sort of like easy things to do. Every guitar player has that thing, like when they pick up guitar, the first thing they do.
They do the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. The guitar store licks. Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Number 4, Tom, what's up going on? Thanks for the super chat. I'm in a Slipknot tribute band in Japan. Oh, how cool is that? I hope to talk to you personally someday together with the tattoo artist Gario.
Gary Yu, yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure when we're going to be in Japan soon, but and I haven't talked to Gary Yu in quite a while, but Gary Yu, so we went to Japan years ago, and he did this tattoo on me, and we landed in Japan, and I went straight to his tattoo shop, and that's a long flight, so I'm loopy. We get there at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and he literally tattooed me until 8 in the morning just to get it all done in one shot.
Wow. What is it? What's the tattoo?
It's like a koi turning into a dragon, because that's kind of like and at the time I had a koi pond in front of my house, and the sort of the Japanese, the story is koi are baby dragons, and they evolve into dragons and all that. And I had a koi pond that had 24 beautiful koi in it until a sea otter came in and murdered all of them. But
oh God.
Yeah, and I wanted some traditional Japanese work, and this guy was suggested to me, and it was cool because we'd take breaks as you do throughout the process of getting tattooed, and he'd be like, he doesn't speak English very well, but we'd be out, and he'd be holding a cigarette like this, showing me his phone, showing me other tattoos that he's done, and he'd be like, this tattoo, full body, him jail, him in jail, him. And then he'd tell me another one, and he's like, this guy, Yakuza in jail. This guy, Yakuza, dead. And I'm just like, okay, so this guy tattoos some pretty hard hitters.
Well, it's all about the work, right? I'm actually getting a tattoo later this month, so my forearm right here. So
yeah, I need to finish a bunch of tattoos. I just, I'm lazy, and I don't know if I can sit in a chair that long without getting antsy anymore.
It's tough. It's tough, especially those long days, 8 to 10 hour days in a chair. It's rough. Adam Arsenault, thanks for the super chat. Jim, love what you do. Which engine, 440 or 426 Hemi?
I don't own a Hemi. I've never owned a Hemi. I really, really want a Hemi. But I love my 440. I've got two cars that have 440s in them. One's a 6-pack car, and one I stroked out to a 541, and it's undeniable. It's, it's a larger displacement, bigger pistons. I don't know that they necessarily make more power. You can make them make more power, but maybe the 426 Hemi, just because it's sort of like an iconic motor, and one day I will have a car with a 426 Hemi in it.
All right,
awesome. Yeah, I know you're a big car guy, right? Yeah, and motorcycles too, right?
Motorcycles and cars, it's an affliction.
Yeah. Well, apparently he's a big guitar and amp guy too.
Yes. Hey, you
might have a problem.
Multiple hobbies when you're young, and then it turns into obsession, and it's good. It's good to have a rotation of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I'm working on motorcycles and I'm stressed out and I'm about ready to throw my wrenches through the drywall, then I can just come and play guitar for a while and chill out on it.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. Florencia Esseling. Hey Jim, I saw a video of you playing your solar guitar. What are your thoughts on solar guitars? I love solars too.
They're great. I've had two of them. The first one I got, I don't remember the models of them. The first one I got, I really loved it. It played really well. I didn't change the pickups in it or anything. I can't remember what pickups or what model it was. It was kind of a silver one, hardtail. And it was a cool guitar until we went to record with it with Joe Barisi, and it just sounded really soft. No matter what amp we played it through, no matter what cabinet we played it through, it didn't punch enough to make the record. So I ended up selling that guitar, I think, to my buddy Ian. But I got another one. He did a limited run of guitars that were put together in Spain, and it looks like it's burnt. I'm not really sure what the model of it is either, but I have it tuned to A440, it's kind of like my standard tuning. Like if I want to learn like Boston riffs and shit like that, it's kind of like the guitar. Or if I want to play along to like, like metal songs and rock songs that are tuned to A440, it's kind of like my go-to guitar, and it's smooth and it rips. I mean, it's a shredder guitar, man. It's made for shredding. It's undeniable. It's a hot rod guitar. It's real comfortable. I don't know how it sounds in a recording type of situation. I haven't had it long enough to take it into that world, but it's definitely a guitar that I pull out and I have, sitting in a stand, and I'm like, when I want to mess around in A440, it's kind of like the first guitar I go to.
How often are you doing that? Going to, standard tuning versus, lower?
A couple times a week, especially like, so, I grew up with like hippie parents that were deep into classic rock, and all that kind of stuff. So, all these songs that they would listen to, whether it's like Bob Seger or, Boston or Bad Company or, you name it. I know all these songs and they're in my head, and sometimes I'll throw a riff out of it, or like Journey or whatever it is, but I've never actually learned them. So, about a month or so ago, I sat down and I pulled that Solar out and I learned like the whole intro foreplay into Long Time for.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was just like, I'm going to actually learn this thing. And, Tom Schultz is such an epic guitar player that why haven't I done this sooner? But, that pentatonic lead at the beginning of foreplay is so tasty, and, and the tone of it's so great. It's like, it's cool. It's fun to play that shit.
It is. I recently learned the solo to More Than a Feeling.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So tasty too.
Yeah.
And even Neil Schon solos are so musical. I mean, that guy, I don't want to say he's an underrated guitar player, but a lot of people really don't talk about him as a guitar player when it comes to like all that journey. I mean, you can hum Neil Schon solos, and he's so technically proficient.
Yeah. So melodic, very melodic.
So melodic. And shit, I'm having a brain fart. What's Pat Benatar's husband's name?
Neil Giraldo. Yeah.
Neil Giraldo. What an amazing guitar player. That even when I was a kid, like glued to the TV when MTV was a thing, like listening to the dun 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 dun, and what you trying to do, like the way he approached his guitar tone and the way he plays, so good. Elliot Easton, mind-blowing guitar player. I mean, I don't think these guys get enough like accolades for how they've inspired generations of musicians, like whether it's garage New York indie bands like the Strokes, or who's the band that did Maps, the song Maps, you know what I mean, like all these, like all that stuff, like all these guitar players are so influential to all that we hear now,
Yeah.
Unless it's like, like hip hop or R&B or like Beyonce type stuff that it's not really guitar centric, so it doesn't really translate,
Yeah. JT Rocker, Jim, who inspired your legato technique?
Laziness.
I don't know that artist.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really weird. Like, man, there's so many guitar players out there that play so fluid. I think it was just easier for me when I was learning sweep picking and learning 3-note per string scales. I was just going like down all the strings and then back up, doing 3-note per strings. And I think that just evolved into combining the shapes of all those scales together. And it was just easier for me to play legato like that. But it's really weird. Like I've been like the Michelangelo Badio sort of like alternate picking stuff I've been like digging back into, and the Paul Gilbert stuff. I find that when I'm playing a solo in the studio, I tend to alternate pick more than I do legato. And I haven't really cracked the code on how to write a solo and incorporate the legato into the solo. I do it, it'll be in there, but I'm also picking a lot of it out, and maybe my adrenaline's high and all that stuff. But, sometimes I do pick alternate and people are thinking that I'm doing legato. But I do play a lot of legato, whether that's you know, a good or bad thing. I don't know. It sounds fluid, you know.
Whatever sounds good is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Josh Ellicott. Hey guys, can you please talk about the tones on the albums? Example, the 5150 and the modded Laney AOR 100 that Jim used on Iowa.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really know how you want me to talk about that. So that Laney was actually Josh, the guitar player I replaced. It was his head, and Ross liked the sound of that amp so much that and Josh was cool enough to loan it to us to use for the Iowa record when we were recording that. And that was modded by a guy I went to high school with. He was a couple of years older than me, a guy named Kevin Miles, who was a mixed guitar tech. And he was doing that thing that, you know, a lot of people do. They want to see how things work and they want to add mods to things. And I'm not even really sure what kind of mod was in that amp, but it did have a really unique tone. It just had that thing, you know, when you hear some amps have that thing where it sounds wide, it sounded full, it sounded like I don't know, it's just that thing, you know, and it had it. And I would have loved to have bought that amp off of him. It had like a Slipknot sticker over where it used to say Laney, one of the original stickers that they made in the early days when they were playing Harry Mary's. I'm sure Josh probably still owns that amp. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't. It's an amazing sounding amp. And, you know, I think I looked for some of those on Reverb, but I just couldn't bring myself to buy them. I think I went with the DC or the 50 calibers instead. And I was also looking for PV VTM 120s because that was like the first real I had, you know. And what's really funny is Joe had VTM 120s at his studio, and he calls it the Mississippi Marshall. He pulled one out. And I forgot how good that amp sounded. It blows my mind how like these amps that I had when I was like so young, like 14, 15, 16, how great those amps sound even to this day when there's been like so many like, you know, leaps and bounds in technology and the way amps are built and all the boutique companies that have popped up, you know, in the meantime. It's like, you know, it makes me wonder, it's like, well, why isn't Mesa Boogie still making these great amps that they made, you know, 30 plus years ago?
That is a question, isn't it?
Yeah. And maybe some of the stuff's not available. Maybe the capacitors that they used back then are not available. Maybe they've been made illegal. Maybe, you know, I know
that's not it.
You know, yeah. Wasn't there like a tube shortage years ago or something like that? Or
well, yeah. Not
that's over with.
A few years ago, that's over with, though. I mean, it's not an issue now.
Right.
Yeah, there's no reason really.
It's really just
they moved on and thought they made a better design.
Yeah, well, go back.
That's funny. When you're recording albums, do you tend to always use, you know, real tube amps, or have you ever used modeling digital?
I have never used a modeling amp on a record ever once, and I don't know that I can.
Round of applause.
Yeah. That to me doesn't make. I don't understand why that would even be a thing to me. You know, it's like
that makes no sense.
Yeah, no.
Use the real thing.
Yeah. Always has to be the real thing. 100%.
Aaron Sim, thanks for the super chat. Jim, I'm your biggest fan from Singapore. Hey, thanks from Singapore.
Like, what are we talking about? Like height, weight?
Have all your signature guitars. Just want to ask, what's your favorite song to play live of all time?
Man, that's a tough one because there's so many different songs that have different vibes, different emotions, different ways to act. I really enjoy playing Prosthetics live. There's something about that song. It's another one of those like ethereal, kind of like moody, dark songs. It breaks down, it gets heavy. And it's, Corey's lyrics are really dark, and it's because it's like sort of pulled back. It's kind of like a good moment in the set to like sort of take a breath, and I can really think about what I'm playing, and I can like look into the crowd and like register what's happening around me. And yeah, so really enjoy playing prosthetics. I like playing Vermilion a lot too, or any song where I get to play a guitar solo. I like all of those songs. There's not many of them, you know.
Well, that always makes it fun.
Yeah.
Kiki Gonzalez, thanks for the super chat. Did you ride your motorcycle in Pioneer Town? Would you ever come back to the desert?
I didn't get a chance to, no, because so I went out to film a video for Harley Davidson in Phoenix. So I drove out from where I live to go do these shows, and I had to leave the motorcycle in Phoenix because I didn't want to have it sitting in the back of my truck, parked at a casino parking lot. I didn't get a chance to, but that's bucket list stuff for me. I absolutely want to ride through the desert, and I was born in the desert. I was born in Las Vegas, and I have an affinity for the desert. I love it. It's magical to me, and people that live in the desert probably hate it. They're probably so used to it that they don't even think about it. But for me, whenever I'm in the desert, there's a vibe, there's an emotion there that happens to me, and maybe it's just because I was born there, and we got to visit every year as I was growing up. So no, I didn't get a chance to ride. Yes, someday I will do that, and I will do that a lot. And as far as coming back to the desert, like I need a desert retreat. I need a fortress of solitude that's in the desert. I need, whether it's like Boulder City, Nevada, or whether it's somewhere, in Palm Desert or around that Indio area of California. It's just magical, and I hold it very dear. And not only that, since we played Pappy and Harriet's, I've been speaking with the people that run and own Pappy and Harriet's, and they're such good people, and they're so cool, and they're so nice, and they do so many events that are like kind of based around like the whole bike industry and things like that. That I would love to. Plus, I'd be closer to where Sean's living now, and I could take all the amps that I don't get a chance to use into a studio. I could have there, and they'd be that much closer to a studio that I could, actually use them at.
Right.
Or even maybe have a rehearsal set up in a place there. Like, let's rehearse for a while, and then let's go on an evening ride through the desert.
It's not something you can go somewhere and like rent bikes or something like that, or
no. I mean, I'm 6'6", so renting bikes for me it's difficult. I don't fit on a lot of motor. Like I customize all my. I shave the seats and I put different bars on them, and I build the motors and do all that. Plus, having your own bike is like a whole thing. You have a connection to your motorcycle, and the way they react, and you're more comfortable on them. But how they handle. There's just all that stuff about having your own bike that, I have a truck just so I can throw motorcycles in the back of it to drive out to the West Coast. Every time we do a record, I bring a motorcycle with me, and I park my truck, and I get all my gear to the studio, and I never touch my truck until I leave to drive back home. I'm on the motorcycle every day.
That's
Especially with LA traffic, and the fact that you can split lanes in LA. It cuts your commutes down, and it's fun. And I know a bunch of people out there that I ride with, and there's so much beautiful riding out there. I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just it's stellar. So no and yes.
Thanks for the super chat, Kiki. Luke Wilson, Jim, are you into vintage guitars? And if so, what are some of your favorite and rarest?
I am. I had a bunch. I'm starting to kind of like clean house with my guitars because I have a bunch of guitars that are not getting used, and it sort of breaks. Like, I love these guitars and I love having them, but it kind of breaks my heart a little bit to have guitars that I don't get a chance to play that often.
Mm-hmm.
So I was of the philosophy that it's time for me to like do some feng shui, and make some more room in the garage and sell off some of them. I had a 5090 S330 that I, recently gave up to sell, and, some older Gibsons mainly. I had a 66 Jazzmaster candy apple that you could see the shoreline gold underneath it for the candy color. And I love that guitar dearly, but I was never using it. It never made it to a studio, and I couldn't bring myself to tune it low for the stuff we were doing. And my guitar tech Brad is so good to me, and he treats me so well, and he's into wacky, like off the wall kind of guitars. So I was like, dude, this guitar should be yours. I mean, it's got you written all over it, so have it. As far as like some of the older guitars, like I have a couple early, late 70s, early 80s Silverburst Gibsons. I've got an 81 Flying V that I absolutely love, but I can't bring myself to like put my pickups in it and use it as a workhorse to actually play with. I did that with a 79 that had already been bastardized, but I have a handful of collector guitars, old Gretsch's, Country Gentleman, I think in the early 60s.
Nice.
Guitars like that. And I've got a 40s Martin acoustic. I enjoy a lot. So I am into them.
What about vintage amps?
What's that?
Oh, vintage amps, any older amps?
No, I don't really have any vintage amp. Well, I mean, what's vintage? 25 years now? Is that what?
I guess, yeah.
Block letter 5150 might be vintage now.
So,
for sure.
I'm showing my age. Yeah, but yeah.
I don't have any old vintage. I do have an Ampeg, one of the Lee Jackson ones that I got off eBay that have been gone through and redone. Just amps like that, like vintage for me, but not like anything from like the 60s or anything like that.
Right.
Which isn't to say that I would never get anything like that, but it's all, that boils down to, am I buying this for an investment so that I can eventually someday, make my money back or make more money on it? Or am I buying it as a tool to use in a studio? Will it get used in a studio? That's kind of the balance and the things that go through my head before I make a purchase of like any gear, unless it's just like a guitar. I see a guitar sometimes, I don't even think twice. Oh, that's cool. Buy.
Oh yeah. You just love that feeling. You're like, ooh, okay, that's gonna come in 3 days. Can't wait to get
that. For sure.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it. One of the things you mentioned when we first started, before we went online, was about in-ears and that you don't use them, right?
Yeah. Too restrictive. I just feel way too isolated with in-ears. I get it from a sound guy standpoint, for him to try to get more isolation and not having all these monitors blowing sound around the stage that are going to go into like vocal mics or drum mics or things like that. But I tried it once, and I had a year when they first started to become a thing, and I got like a 1K feedback spike through one of my ears, and it like about off, and that kind of turned me off a little bit. And then when I was actually like rehearsing with them, I just felt so isolated. I felt like I was disconnected from the rest of the band. I felt like I was disconnected from my guitar. I didn't feel like I was getting response. You can get response through your wedges coming back at you, hitting your pickups and things like that. And with that gone, you just don't have that. You don't feel the wind moving. It just feels sterile.
Right.
But the biggest problem for me with in-ears is, even with the little bands that you can put around them when you put them in, so I can seep them into my ears, and they're custom molded, so they're made for my ear canals, but they would seat for a minute until I like either moved my mouth or moved my head, and then they would pop out just enough that all the bass response would just go away. So in order for me to, and I don't know if it's just my particular ears or the way my head is, in order for them to sound how they're supposed to sound, I'd have to literally hold them in and push them in to get that bass response back. It's kind of like that put a cup over your ear and you get that kind of.
Right.
I was getting a lot of that, and for me, it's just not an option. Like almost to the point where it was like, you have to use in-ears or you can't play live anymore. I'd be like, well, fuck, guess I'm not playing live anymore.
Well, you got a monitor, right? You use a
Yeah, I have wedges.
yeah,
Wedges and side fills.
yeah, yeah. Cool. The other thing I was going to ask you guys about is I, I when I was younger, I was into special effects makeup, and I used to make masks and all kinds of stuff. So when you guys are doing masks, do you design your new masks? Like, how do you go about doing that? I'm just curious.
So it depends on who I'm working with as a mask maker, but I'll throw ideas out there and I'll send picture references. I have a good friend of mine, Eddie, is a graphic design artist. So not the mask that I wore at Pappy and Harriet's in Sick New World, but the previous mask that I wore for the entire album cycle. I guess it was from We Are Not Your Kind all the way up to this point. My buddy Eddie designed to help me design this mask, the one with the circle around the eye. And they've just been slight evolutions of the Jester mask. I didn't want to move too far away from what that was. Some of the other guys are comfortable with doing that in the band, but for me, I want to keep it. Like McDonald's isn't just going to come out and get rid of the arches, are they? No, they're going to have them evolve if they do anything, or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever it is.
Right.
So that's my philosophy with that. So what I'll do is I'll work with a mask and designer, an artist, and I'll get my head molded. And while they're sculpting, I'll send them. I'll talk to them physically and be like, okay, I kind of want it to be like, chiseled. It needs to be cut out for the beard. But then I'll send them reference pictures of my older masks, and I'll be like, can we take like how the eyes are here, how the cut goes down into the mouth, since there's not going to be a zipper in the lips anymore. Let's do away with the zipper. Let's have like a black, like, almost feminine top lip. And, it's just a kind of like a bouncing off ideas off of each other until, and lately they can do rendering. So I can kind of see what the mold will look like before they start on it, which helps make it a little bit more efficient. But I think I'm going to have a couple different ones made upcoming. I just haven't found the artists to actually start doing the work and having the conversation with yet. But I'm kind of digging the one that the last guy Jim made for me with the orange in the eyes, because under some of the lights it almost looks fluorescent and it pops really well. So I'm kind of digging the way the colors are popping. I just kind of want to work on the aesthetics a little bit more.
Nice. No, that's cool. I was into that when I was younger. So I know this is Tone Talk, but this was an interesting. I know that this was.
That's an interesting question.
It was
good.
Yeah.
Well, but there is something with that though. So Corey's masks over the years, like speaking of tone, like he used to have masks that would push on his nose, and it would change the way his voice would sound when he was singing, because he's, obviously someone's pushing on your nose, and it made his voice more like kind of nasal. And now he's kind of figuring out ways to have the jaw so it's more flexible to kind of keep it off of his sinuses a little bit more, and so he can breathe. I mean, his body is his instrument. So,
yeah, super cool. We've got one more super chat, and then I think we're gonna call it a night. Eaton Brahman, I think it is Braham. Bram. Or Brahm. Jim, awesome to hear about the donations to the no-kill shelters. Yeah, that's super cool. I love my JM USA Jazz Master. How will putting a Damonum pickup change the sound? Sorry if I butchered that.
Yeah, the Demonium pickups, my signature EMG pickups. I'm not really sure. I've done it. So my number one telly had the original 81 and 60 pickups in it from when they first prototyped that guitar. And I put my Demoniums in it for a while we were recording, and it didn't change the character of the guitar enough that I decided to keep them in there. I kind of want to put them back in though, just because I personally like the way those pickups respond. It's got a wider frequency band because they're retroactive, and it's more of it's ceramic and Alnico, and it just has a preamp, and the way it reacts to the volume swells and the way it reacts with tube amps is more like a passive pickup, not as compressed as the full-on active pickups. So what I think you'll find if you put one of those in your US Jazzmaster is it's going to be a little more organic. It's going to be a little bit closer to a passive pickup, but it's still going to have the output and the gain structure of an active pickup. It's definitely going to be much less compressed. It could feel thicker and fuller to you. But those are also a little less gainy, because what I found was, in the world we're living in nowadays with computers the way they are and so many like digital modeling things, those things have so much gain, and there's so many boutique amps that have so much gain now. I wanted my pickups to have a little less gain, so if you wanted to push the gain on your amplifier, the preamp section, a little bit more, you could, without getting into that spongy world that Dave was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Kind of helps with that a little bit. So it may be a little more unforgiving for you to do that, but I think the benefits in the long run are good. Because so when we shot those pickups out, it was when we were working on We Are Not Your Kind and Fiddleman. We took the same guitar, a USA Jazzmaster like what you have, and we recorded a section of me playing with the 81 and the 60 in it, flipping between the two pickups. And then Brad, my tech, put the demoniums in it. And then we did the same thing, played the same thing, through it, same amp, same everything, same flipping through the pickups. And we compared the wave files, on Pro Tools. You can look and you can see the wave file.
Yeah.
And the wave file on the demoniums is almost twice as thick as the 81 and the 60, just because they're that much less compressed. And I don't know if that translates into that's that much more output, but it's definitely noticeable in that world. And for me, it's like I like to play with the volume, roll them on, roll it off, volume swells, things like that. And I think they react a little smoother and a little bit more like a passive.
Okay,
Great.
awesome. Thanks for the super chat. Last one here. Porky Low End. Hey Jim, why do you single your front three fingers with a hairband? What do you feel to get out of it? He's playing with it, man. What are you talking about?
So literally, the only reason these are here is so I don't lose them. Nothing to do with playing guitar or anything like that. It's literally just a place for me to keep hair ties when I feel like I want to tie my hair up. If I don't have them here, I can't. I'll lose them, or I'll be looking for them and all that stuff. So I guess the benefit is I'm a forgetful person that hides shit from myself, and
That's too funny.
yeah, so and that's why if you notice, if you like go back and look at pictures of me on stage, if my hair is short, I don't have these. But when my hair is longer, I have them, so I can tie my hair up when the need arises.
I thought it might be a fret wrap. That's what I thought.
No, it's just
Just a hair tie.
I have a fret wrap on a couple of guitars that that are hardtails that don't have locking nuts, that kind of get a little reverby when you're trying to do tight stops. They still ring.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a storage place for me. Not forget that they're there.
Simple explanation.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Jim, for coming on, man. It's almost 2 hours that you've been with us, and it's been an awesome conversation, getting to know you and learn about all things guitar and tone and music for Slipknot and everything. So it's been awesome. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We're going to take a break probably for a couple weeks, Dave, and then we'll do an Ask Dave probably in a couple weeks. Maybe in like 3 weeks. We'll come back on a Friday night and do an Ask Dave. And
yeah, we've done a bunch of shows really quick here.
We've been back to back.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's been like a month of shows. Every Friday night we've been doing shows. So it's been awesome to have you on, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. This is cool. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it was pretty chill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we just sit back and bullshit basically.
I was like tripping out, texting Brad, my guitar tech. I'm like, I don't know how to build amps. I don't know what the fuck. I'm like, what do I talk about?
No, we weren't getting that technical. Definitely not. So awesome. Well, hang on while we say goodbye. We're just going to say goodbye offline. Everybody have a great great weekend, and please hit the subscribe button, click the bell, and we'll see you next time. All right, take care.
See you guys.